Hey there, I'm Tracy, and I'm 61 years old. And in the next 20 minutes, I'm going to tell you the real reason every attempt to get your act together and move past your shame and guilt about the decisions you've made over the last several years hasn't lasted. It's not what you think. It's not for lack of discipline. It's not your lack of willpower. And it's not because you didn't want it bad enough, right? I'm going to walk you through a 4-step system I built for men over 50 who used to have it together and really want that guy back. And I'm going to teach you the first 3 steps right now. So stay with me to the end because there's something your family needs you to hear. I want to start by telling you about my dad. My dad was a man who lived dishonestly. For my whole childhood and into my adulthood, he lied. He lied to my mom, he lied to me and my brother, and he lied to people we'd known for years. Just to be straight up, he was a con man, and it cost our family a lot. It cost me a relationship with him for most of my life. I spent decades angry and ashamed of him. Then, you know what, one day in a therapy session, something happened that changed everything. He turned into a child in front of me. I watched this 65-year-old man become small in his chair and unable to speak. And I saw for the first time what he'd actually been carrying. He was literally buried under his own guilt and shame, his own negative self-talk, decades of it, so buried that he genuinely couldn't see what his choices had cost the people who loved him. And of course, he wasn't trying to hurt us. He was just so consumed by what was in his own head that there was nothing left for him to give. When he was physically there, he wasn't really there. If you know what I mean, his body was there in the room, but he was always somewhere else in his head. That moment in front of the therapist allowed me to forgive him. He visited and got to spend time with my daughter, who was 3 at the time. Unfortunately, he died less than 6 months later. But here's what I really learned from that day at the therapist. The cost of carrying that much weight alone for that long wasn't just to him. The cost was to me and my family. We lived with a man who was physically present and emotionally absent until my parents divorced when I was 13, and that continued until he died at 65. I swore I'd never be that man, but you know what? I turned into my own version of him. Different reasons, different shape, but the same pattern of being buried up here with my own guilt and shame. There were literally years when I was with my family on a weekend and the voice in my head was louder than my wife's voice. There were times when she'd be telling me about her day and I'd snap out of a thought in 10 minutes later and realize that I hadn't heard a single word she said. Does that sound familiar? There were times when my kids were telling me something important and I was just nodding along, but the whole time I was somewhere else in my head, beating myself up about mistakes I'd made years ago, the money I'd lost, the man I told myself I should be by now. I'm not standing here as the guy who saw what my dad did and avoided it. I'm standing here as the guy who saw what my dad did, swore I'd never do it, and did it anyway. Fast forward to 2022 when I got COVID. The virus damaged the vestibular nerve in my right ear here, and the nerve that controls your balance. Well, that day I lost tennis. And tennis had been the one place in my life where I could escape the noise in my head for a couple of hours. It felt like relief, but I wasn't actually dealing with anything. Tennis was just the escape. Then by accident, I discovered running. Even though my balance was destroyed, as someone who was always active, I needed to keep moving. And so I tried to jog. Even though it was difficult with my balance issues, it's one of the things I could do without feeling like I was going to fall on my face. I guess forward momentum in a straight line seemed to work. And what I discovered, running by myself for hours every week, was that I wasn't running to fix my body. Running became the place where I finally couldn't outrun what was in my head. And that's where the comeback cohort came from. I actually built it for the man I used to be and for my dad who never got the chance to do this work in time. Here's what I want you to understand for the next 15 to 20 minutes. If you've been telling yourself for 10, 20, or even 30 years that the reason you can't get yourself back and can't move forward with confidence is that you're not disciplined enough, I can tell you you're 100% wrong. I know, I've been there. I know the frustration you're feeling, but you're not lazy or weak, and you're not lacking willpower. Nobody wants to be held back by their own shame and guilt, right? Especially men. Your problem is that you've never sat down and faced what you've actually been carrying. The regrets, the avoidances, the bad decisions you made years ago that hurt people you love, the shame about who you used to be and who you haven't become yet, no matter what your age is. You've been trying to build action on top of weight that you refuse to look at. And that action keeps failing, not because you're weak, but because the foundation under it has never been stabilized. And here's the part that hurts. You've been too ashamed to tell anyone. not your wife, not your closest friend, not your brother or sister. You know, you've been carrying this around completely alone for years. And that's the real reason every January resolution dies by March, the reason the gym memberships, stop getting used, the reason your marriage feels half conversational, and the real reason you're somewhere else in your own head while your daughter's telling you about her day. And I know that's not a great place to be. So it was never a discipline problem. I need you to understand that. It was a weight problem, the weight of everything you've been beating yourself up about. I did this for years. And I bet you know exactly what I'm describing because you've been carrying yours around quietly for 10, 15, or 20 more years, and you've never told a soul, right? Let me see if I can explain this with my own life. 4 years ago, post-COVID, I couldn't jog a mile. I tried, started, stopped, started again, stopped again, got new running shoes as motivation, watched some YouTube videos, made a plan, but I quit by week 3. Can you relate to that? I bet you can. I told myself my problem was discipline, that I just needed to be more committed and try to push through my balance and inner issues, but be more focused and be more consistent. But I'm telling you, I was totally wrong. What changed wasn't my discipline. What changed was that running by myself hour after hour became the first place I couldn't escape my own head. I actually had to face what I've been carrying, which went way beyond my post-COVID balance issues and the weight from my dad, the years that I hadn't been present with my own family, the guilt and shame I'd suffered in silence because there was nowhere else to put it, and I just felt alone with it. But once I started facing it, like actually facing it, did you get that running stopped being a discipline problem? Today I run more than 10 miles, I'm glad to say, comfortably, in spite of my balance issues. And my VO2 max is 40, which puts me in the top 20% of men in my age bracket for cardiovascular fitness. By the way, VO2 max is how much oxygen your body can use during intense exercise. And it's also the strongest physical indicator of longevity. So it's important if you want to be around for your family as long as possible. That's part of the reason why I run now. So like I said, I didn't get more disciplined. I never figured out how to push through harder. Let's go, 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 go. I stopped trying to outrun what I was carrying and face it instead. That was the big aha moment, the light bulb moment in my life. And you know what? My family felt it before I realized it. My wife felt me listening instead of zoning out. My kids felt me less on edge and less somewhere else in my head all the time. The miles changed my body, which is great, but the real change was how I showed up with my family. Now, I want to introduce the system I built, but before I do, let me tell you what I see every single week. I see a 57-year-old man who downloaded Couch to 5K for the 3rd time this year, ran twice, tweaked his calf and quit, and then told nobody. I see a 54-year-old dad who watched 40 hours of health podcasts in the last 3 months and hasn't put a pair of running shoes on. I see a man who joined a gym in January and went twice, and you know what? Now that $10 to $30 a month membership fee is just a guilt tax on his credit card statement. I see a 60-year-old man sitting on his couch on a Saturday afternoon with his family, but his head is always somewhere else. I see good men who are quietly losing the war in the mirror with a voice in their head that says, "It's too late, I'm not worthy." That's exactly why I created the FACE method, F-A-C-E. Face it, acknowledge it, claim it, and embody it. The 4 moves I didn't make for 30 years of my life. The 4 moves my dad never made his whole life. The 4 moves that once I figured them out, changed my running, changed how I thought about myself, changed my marriage, and changed how I show up for my kids. Inside the Comeback cohort, I walk through these 4 moves using weekly playbooks and a simple running plan built for men over 50, just like you and me. And once you learn and understand the FACE method, you'll be able to walk into a Saturday afternoon with your family and actually be there. Can you imagine what that would be like? How would that feel right now? You'll stop carrying the years of guilt around in silence. You'll cross a 5K finish line in 12 weeks with your wife and kids in the crowd watching, and they'll actually feel the difference in you, right? I'll teach you the first 3 steps right now. Step 4 stays in the program because it's the one that actually requires structure and other men around you to execute, okay? So one quick thing before I walk you through the steps, I want to answer a question I get all the time, and that is, if you can guess, why running? Tracy, why running? I'm not a runner. I've never run before. I don't even know if I could run around the block right now. And my answer is you don't have to be a runner. What matters is this. Running is simple. You warm up, you put on shoes, and you go. No fancy equipment and no complicated workout plan required. 2, running is measurable. Either you do the run that you promised yourself or you don't. And there's no other way around it. And 3, running is honest. On a run, you can't distract yourself the way you can on a tennis court or in front of a screen. The same thoughts and voices show up, but now you have space to actually hear them and work with them. For me, tennis was where I escaped that voice, but running is where I finally had to listen and decide what to do with that voice. Okay? There's also the science behind running. You know, regular running or even run walk intervals, jogging is fine too, jogging is running, has been shown to boost mood, anxiety, and depression and improves sleep and focus, especially men like us over 50. And when you hit small concrete goals like finishing a run you couldn't finish last week, your brain gets hard proof that you're not done yet and that your confidence goes up because you've actually done something that you weren't sure you could do before, right? So inside the comeback cohort, we use running as a delivery system for the inner work. When you face your day one truth, we tie it to a first honest mile instead of a fantasy version of yourself. When you name what you've been carrying, we attach it to specific weeks of training so your body's moving while your pen is moving at the same time, right? When you claim your story out loud, you're doing it in a body that's proving to you week after week that you can do difficult things. And by the time you cross that 5K finish line in week 12, it's not about the medal, it's about realizing I ran myself into a different story. Your wife and kids don't just hear you say you've changed, they watch you cross a line that you quietly stopped believing you could reach, so they believe it. So no, you don't have to be a runner today, okay? We start with the minutes you can run now, not the mile you remember from 20 years ago. But the running is there because it's one of the fastest ways I know to rebuild real earned confidence in men our age. And because literally, if running saved me, I believe it has the power to save you too, okay? So step 1 is face it. Before we talk about how, let me illustrate what happens when men try to skip this step. I see a man who decides on Sunday night that he's going to change his life. So on Monday, he buys a $200 pair of running shoes. He downloads a tracking app, starts intermittent fasting, plans a 3-day mile, all on day 1. And by Wednesday, guess what? He's sore, and by Saturday, he's quit. There's the man who watches a video about his Zone 2 training and decides he needs a heart rate monitor and a VO2 max test before he can even get started. 3 months later, he's still researching. He never does anything. Then there's the man who tells himself, I'll start when things calm down. And then 7 years later, things still haven't calmed down. I went through a patch of 8 years like this. That's why step 1 of the FACE method is just that. Face it. Stop ignoring it. Get specific and honest about where you actually stand. Not where you'd like to be, not the version of the person you told your college buddy. The actual answer with a number on it. Inside the cohort, we start by getting honest about what your body can do on day 1 and 3 honest sentences about your life. Then we can build from there. No fantasy version of you again, just the man who's actually lacing up his shoes on day 1. And you know, when a man finally does this, he gets a real starting point that nobody can argue with, not even the voice in his own head. And 12 weeks later, when that same voice tells him nothing has changed, he can look at where he started, look at what he can do now, and know that that voice isn't telling the truth. So it's powerful. The belief shift in step 1 is this. You're not weighing your options. You're just avoiding the truth about where you are right now, okay? The day you face that truth is the day everything else becomes possible. Now let's look at step 2. Step 2 is acknowledge it. Here's what I see when men try to skip this one. There's a man who's been carrying regret from 2014 in the back of his head and has never written it down. He can't tell you exactly what it is because he's never let himself look at it directly because he's been scared of it. The fuzziness is what's been protecting him, but at the same time, the fuzziness is also what's been keeping him stuck. I see a man whose wife asks him, hey, what's wrong? And he says nothing, but it's never nothing, right? It's always all the stuff up here, and he's never named any of it. Then there's a man who's been telling himself for 15 years that he'll get to the things he's been avoiding, but you know what? The list just keeps getting longer and longer. That's why step 2 of the FACE method is acknowledge it. You name what you've actually been carrying, specifically on paper with dates. The regrets, the avoidances, the broken promises, and even the things that happen you couldn't control that you've never let yourself separate from your own mistakes. Inside the cohort, we do this in a very specific way. You put it on paper privately. There's no fixing yet. It's just inventory, not a confession. What happens when a man finally puts the weight on paper is this. He realizes the stuff in his head isn't infinite. It has a shape, and it fits on 4 pieces of paper, or less. The shame that felt limitless when it was vague becomes finite the moment it's specific. He stops feeling like he's drowning and starts feeling like he's holding a problem he can actually deal with. The belief shift in step 2 is this: what you've been carrying is not as big as it feels. It has shape. And the moment you see that shape, it stops controlling you. Now, step 3 is where most men break. Step 3 is claim it. Before I get into step 3, listen carefully. This is the step most men try to skip, and it's the one where most men fail. I see a man who writes everything down, faces his number, names what he's been carrying, and then locks the whole thing back up in his own head. He tells himself the writing is enough, and 3 weeks later, the work has unwound itself and he's back to where he started. He tells himself the writing is enough, but 3 weeks later, the work has unwound itself and he's back to where he started. I see a man who's carried the same shame for 20 years and has never said a word about it to another human being, not even his wife, because guess what? He doesn't want to disappoint her again. Can you relate to that? He's been alone with it this entire time, and that loneliness is what's been making it even heavier. I see a man who knows exactly what he's carrying and refuses to speak it because he's ashamed of it. And while it stays unspoken, it keeps controlling him. It rents space in his head, and it's louder than his wife's voice at dinner. It's louder than his kid telling him about at school, and it runs his life from the dark. That's why step 3 of the FACE method is claim it out loud to yourself first in a quiet room, then to one trusted person. Sometimes that trusted person is your wife. Sometimes it's another guy in the cohort. Either way, it stops living only in your head and stops living in the light where it can't run your life from the dark anymore. Make sense? Now, inside the comeback cohort, I walk you through exactly how to do this in a way that's survivable and honest. And what happens when a man finally speaks what he's been carrying out loud to another human for the first time? The shame loses its grip. The pain stops controlling him because it's no longer hidden, and he stops being alone in his own head. And that aloneness, like I said, more than any other specific weight, is what's been crushing him for years. I felt that myself for a long time. The belief shift in step 3 is the most important one in the whole system. Your pain has been controlling you because you refuse to speak it. But the moment you say it out loud to one safe person, you take back the control. You become the man your family deserves because you stop being the man who's physically there but mentally drowning. You start being the man who's actually present. And I know you can be that man again, just like I became. Step 4, embody it, is where it all turns into action that actually holds. Daily action, not just the willpower kind that just fades out. It's the kind that finally sticks because the foundation under it is solid now. But step 4 stays inside the cohort because step 4 isn't something I can teach in a quick webinar like this. It's something I have to walk you through in real time with other men doing the same supportive work. That's what the program is for. Okay, so here's what you've seen in the last 15 to 20 minutes. You've seen the lie that your problem is discipline. You've seen the truth that your problem is unaddressed weight you've been carrying around for a long time alone. You've seen my proof that this is exactly what worked in my own life and helped me stop pretending and start living as the husband and father I wanted to be for a long time. And you've seen the first 3 steps of the FACE method. Now here's how we work together. The Comeback Cohort is a 12-week virtual coaching program. It's for men over 50 who used to have it together and want that guy back. You can get it back. And who are tired of carrying weight they've never spoken out loud. Inside the cohort, you get 12 weekly playbooks, 1 per week, that walk you through facing your past, naming what you've been carrying, having the hardest conversation you've had in years, most likely, with your wife or a closest person, exposing the voice in your head, and writing down who you're choosing to be from here on out. You get weekly Zoom coaching with me and other men in the cohort who are done pretending. Daily group accountability inside the private community. A link-up partner starting week 5, who is another cohort member you check in with regularly so you're not doing any of this alone. And in week 12, you cross an officially registered 5K finish line. Your race in your city at your own comfortable effort with your family in the crowd if you want them there. And remember, you don't have to be a runner today. We start small and progress from there. As a member of the cohort, you also get a one-on-one starting line session with me before the cohort begins. We map exactly where you are, where you're headed, and how to make the next 12 weeks survivable and honest. A week 3 lifeline call with me when you hit the wall, and you probably will hit the wall. But don't worry, we'll make sure you don't go dark when it gets hard, okay? The Next Mile Playbook, unlocked when you cross the 5K finish line. This is your playbook for the next 90 days following the cohort. The family letter template, also unlocked at graduation. This is a letter you write to your wife, kids, or significant other, naming the person you become and what they can expect from you going forward. Cohort 1 starts May 25th, and founding members will always get founding pricing on whatever I build next, advanced cohorts, retreats, or anything that comes after, okay? And here's a bonus for the first 10 men who book. I pay your 5K race entry fee personally. Whatever local race you find, I cover it. It's just my way of saying thank you for being a founding member of something I believe is going to change men's lives, including yours. I want to say one more thing about money. You might be carrying around real weight right now, real financial weight. Maybe you're behind in retirement. Maybe a deal went sideways. Maybe you lost money in the stock market. I've been there. In 2000, I lost almost my entire portfolio in the dot-com crash. So now I know exactly what it feels like to look at a number and feel your stomach just drop, and to carry that guilt around for years. I built a comeback cohort for men carrying weight like that, not pretending it isn't there, but learning to face it instead of running from it for another 10 years, right? We don't pretend the money piece isn't real. We just stop letting it quietly run your entire inner life from the background. This program is for you if you've been on weekends with your family but not really there because the guilt and noise in your head were louder than the room. If your wife has stopped telling you certain things because she can feel you're not listening, and the truth is you weren't, right? If you've been carrying something around for years that you've never told a single human being about, and you're tired of carrying it alone, I know how tough that is. I've experienced that for years. And if you want your loved ones to be proud of the man you are now, not just of the man that you used to be. So look, the next step isn't signing up. The next step is just having a conversation. If anything I've said in the last 20 minutes or so is landing for you, book a call with me. The link is below. You and I get on the phone for about 30 minutes, and I'll ask you about where you actually are. And you know what? You can ask me anything you want to ask about the program. And if we're a fit, I'll welcome you to the cohort. If we're not, I'll tell you that honestly, and we'll have no hard feelings. Again, the first cohort starts May 25th. And as a reminder, I'm covering the race entry fee for the first 10 men who sign up. After that, the founding price holds and the race entry fee bonus is gone. One last thing. You know, my dad ran out of time before he ever got to face what he was carrying. And he died still buried under it. But the cost wasn't just to him. I built the cohort because I watched what happens to a man who waits too long, and because I almost became that man myself. The next 12-week cohort is happening either way. The man waking up 12 weeks later is either the same man sitting where you're sitting right now, or he's a man who finally stopped being alone in his own head. He's either still carrying some unspoken story, or he signed a new one, on paper and with his body. With his family watching him across the line, he quietly stopped believing he could reach. I hope you click the link and book a call. Let's have a conversation man to man about whether you're ready. I hope to see you on the other side.